We are here today with Jordan Cissna, Sarge, David Hall.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
I forget.
No one ever calls me that at work, though.
So.
David is called Sarge when he's in trouble, or Sarge is called David when he's in trouble.
Yeah, I get that.
I can't imagine you're ever in trouble.
You'd be surprised.
You'd be surprised. There's a cuss jar for a reason.
Yeah, right. So, welcome to the show. We are here to talk about you guys and what you're doing. It seems like you have some cool subject matter to talk about. So, just as background, you're both in project management, technical project management. You're not moving forward supply chains and things like that, right?
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
No.
Yeah. So, if you could just go ahead and give us a little introduction, each of you.
Yeah. So Jordan Cissna. I have been in project management for as long as I can remember, specifically in the software development space, in private industries and government contracts, helping really build project management offices. We'll talk a little bit more about what that is, and responsible for ensuring that that message is really being spread across about what PMOs are and what they're not, and how we can use and leverage those in any industry, regardless if it's Web3 or government or heck, even
supply chain
management. So I have a degree in finance. Actually, I was going to be a financial analyst for a long time. That was my goal in life, was to be a financial analyst and a baseball scout.
How did you end up here?
So I got a master's degree, ended up getting an MBA from Weber State University, with an emphasis in cybersecurity, actually, in IT management, and realized that tech is where it is at. Finance is great. I love finances. I love numbers. I love Excel.
Right.
The world does run on Excel.
Yes, it does.
Don't let me tell you different. But the need for innovation in software and folks who can understand financial information, software, people skills. So that's why I think is really huge in what I do and why I chose the career within my education and ultimately leading me here into blockchain land.
Right. Yeah. No, I see posts online in Reddit, people talking like career guidance, and especially software, and people going into anything. If you're not an engineer, usually it's then get a degree in math, accounting, or finance. Like you'll do just fine. Just so long as you understand what a business is up to, then you can.
Yeah, you've got to understand the bottom line. You need to understand. And that's what's great about what I've been able to do and understand with my education and experience is financial, business analytics, MBA, all the key points in a business that needs to run, and then being with it nerd, right, and putting those pieces together.
Yeah, that makes sense. How about you, Sarge? How'd you get here?
Dave Hall. They call me Sarge. Mine's a little longer road than Jordan's, I guess. I've been doing project management since we were using typewriters. You may want to Google that. I'm not sure if you know.
Can we get an image up of those for the viewers?
So, but I spent a little over 20 years in the Air Force. The two best things about what I did in the Air Force was the people I got to work with and running the projects I got to do. I was always a special projects kind of guy, with wherever I went kind of thing. So I got retired from the Air Force about a decade ago now, I guess. And you either do one of two things. You grow a beard and go live on the beach.
Yeah.
Right? Check, but not check. Right? Yeah. So I was like, well, I'll just go get a job. And then I just couldn't not grow and learn new things, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. So when I got a PMP, project management professional certification, got an MBA. I now know what ROI stands for.
Nice.
So I tell him all the all the financial stuff.
You get all the acronyms. Translate for him.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hopped around. I took project management very seriously a few years ago, and met a few people who met a few people. Then all of a sudden, this guy over here is calling me, like, "Hey, we got a job.
Yeah.
Come on over."
Yeah, that's awesome. So you two work together in the PMO. Should we talk about the PMO since I'm throwing out more acronyms?
Sure.
Yeah, PMO. What does it stand for? It stands for, I have nothing off the top of my head that's like catchy.
We need to figure something out though. That'd be awesome.
Like professionally managed orangutans. No. So project management offices, right? PMOs are phenomenal. There's different types, right? The three main ones are supportive, directive, and controlling. And that's a very traditional way of looking at PMOs, and we're not traditional. Sarge and I are not traditional in how we look at how projects should be managed. We like to call our, the project management more disruptive project management offices or agile project management offices, because there's a lot of, again, very traditional ways of doing project management, waterfall, that is good in certain industries, that can leverage certain aspects of agile and be disruptive. And we believe that the PMOs in general need to take on a different approach to software development, especially in Web3, because it's new tech, it's the next frontier. The Agile Manifesto is over 20 years old, which is we love it. We believe in it. But I think that there needs to be a bridge between the two, between traditional, what has worked, 20, 30 years with Sarge's typewriters, and when he was project management and had to rip his project plan up and start over because he couldn't delete, and
physically throw it away,
and what is actually happening in the real world. That's why I learned my master's program, my MBA, is what I loved at Weber State University is we actually didn't just do book smarts. Like every course that we took was you had to go to companies and organizations out there and help them understand different aspects of the marketing or entrepreneurship or finances. And we feel the same way about project management offices. Like you can Google it, right? There's courses you can take, but nothing prepares you unless you get out in the real world and actually do the work and understand that you could do, the way the book says, and you can do some good things, but if you really want to make a mark and make the needle move, you have to be disruptive. You can't just be very transactional. Yeah. You have to be agile, agile, being agile and changing. And everyone, the agilists will agree that, we're being agile. We're doing these things. We're changing up a couple of things. But how can you include in traditional PMOs, risk management, resource management, capacity management, project planning into an agile framework? And that is where the challenge has been. And we have been working actually quite closely this year with the Global PMO Alliance. They're a global PMO, right? They have global ambassadors all across the globe who are working to showcase what PMOs are, and they are working with the Scrum Alliance, scrumalliance.com, to marry Scrum Agile into PMOs. So this is an initiative that's not just something that Sarge and I are working towards showing the world what this can be, but it's actually gaining a lot of momentum across the globe on how to leverage those two types of.
It seems to be on everybody's mind. It's interesting because here, locally, all the tech shops that I've ever worked for here have been agile, on the door, but then it's waterfall and sprints.
Right.
Well, you give it
right.
That's what we do.
Every sprint's a little mini waterfall.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Sarge. I worked with the Air Force for a long time, and we had people who would say, I know Agile. I read a book once. Or read the cover of the book. Or read the back real quick and said, I know what this means.
Yeah.
And then you get it's just ironic when you have those individuals who at the door, we're an Agile shop, but truly don't know what that means. Because one of my favorite quotes about Agile and project management is being Agile means sometimes not being Agile and being okay with that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And there's a lot of lessons that we've had to learn over the years. Like, well, Agile teaches us this, but it also you can't always be Agile, and you have to maybe it makes sense to do some waterfall stuff or some extreme driven development or extreme programming. And you got to be okay not doing Agile to be Agile. And that's
right. Well,
that's the beauty behind it.
Definition of being agile, right?
That's the definition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
You sometimes need to plant a foot somewhere. Yeah. So let's shift topics real quick, and then we'll bring this back. Web3. We kind of touched on it here. So to start, how did you guys get into the Web3 space?
When
did it start?
You start.
I can start. So I've been in Web3 since 2000 and something or other, about 2015, 16. Okay. When this little kid I was working with, he was 20, but
no, I get it.
20's been little to me for about a decade and a half now. But I was working with him out at Dugway Proving Grounds, actually. We're just kind of digging into mud, fixing electronic stuff, at the bombing range. And he walks in like, hey, there's this Bitcoin thing. Like, Bitcoin. What's a Bitcoin thing? So he explains it like, that's complete crap. What is that? He's like, oh, no, it's the future. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. So fast forward about 4 or 5 years, I'm like, oh, man,
Right.
that guy was right.
Right.
And then when this guy called me, I'm like, I missed the first boat. I'm not missing the next one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the opportunity to get into the Web3, the Wild West, of technology is just fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think Web3 and Agile just go together, like peanut butter and jelly,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Like
right.
Agile's all about just making things work the way you need them to work.
Yeah.
That's kind of where everyone's at with Web3 too.
Right.
I remember this. You guys all the story about the guy who bought pizza with Bitcoin.
I was going to bring it up.
That was the first story. See, for me,
Still on
that's
this
the first
wall.
time I ever heard about Bitcoin was when the guy, this guy who bought a pizza with Bitcoin. Now I wish he didn't. Or the guy who threw his server away into a landmine, or threw it away and realized his wallet had,
Yeah.
I don't know how much Bitcoin on there, but it was hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then the Dogecoin era came around, about 3 or 4 years ago, and I jumped on that bandwagon. And there's something here, and started to do a lot of research and with crypto and Web3, and realizing like it's something that you can actually use. And at the time there were hotels and airlines accepting cryptocurrencies, and like, wait a minute, this is another form of payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like Sarge mentioned, like this, I missed the boat with the pizza. I didn't. Like, oh, this is cool. This is like 2014, 15, and I didn't want to miss the second boat. And so when I heard about an opportunity to come work for and help build PMOs and do Agile and Web3, it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer to jump on board.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
On the party bus.
So on the Web3 plus Agile topic, so this has actually been on my mind for a little bit, going through some of the notes that you sent, because like I see a PMO in general as kind of a centralized organization that's kind of helping, and then we have Web3, which is very decentralized, and it seems like Agile is the way to balance that. But what do you guys see for that?
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Traditional PMOs, right, and decentralization, we want to decentralize, which means essentially we won't be here, right? You'll have the community members, you'll have those out there in the community doing the work, creating projects, creating these things. But we want to set up a system of processes and systems so that we, number one, can actually get to that point. And that when we get there, there's always going to be the question about what happens to PMOs long term, and Agile is that balance of Agile will morph and graduate, if you will, into Web3 space. And we feel like with not Sarge and I, but the Global PMO Alliance, ourselves, I'll say nerd, right, with the pioneering and blazing the new trail of what does that mean for decentralization of PMOs,
Right.
and we're still not 100% sure, but we do know that there will always be a need for projects that will come out, and then there's how do we build new projects, and if we're going to decentralize, there has to be software built in order for that to happen, and there needs to be a system of to the chaos to ensure that actually happens. Right, and still allow decentralization and get away from the centralized aspect of a PMO. We're breaking those little pieces up into chunks, if you will, like little shards, spreading those across the globe. There are little pieces of PMO will always be alive and well, just like you're hiding treasure across the globe.
Right.
Oh, that hit me. That hit me. The shards got me.
I think of like an Indiana Jones series, like let's go find all the PMO diamonds that we Sarge and Jordan.
One thing
hidden.
that makes our job so much fun and our goal so challenging is we work in an environment that is on the bleeding edge, right? Like every day somebody turns a corner like, oh, dude, we could take it that way too.
Right.
And building a PMO in an organization that is on the bleeding edge of technology like that, and in a startup environment where we have other startups in our ecosystem, that we're building a PMO in a startup for startups in a technology that's on the bleeding edge is just fascinating.
Yeah.
Being able to, because we're PMO's process. This is the most efficient way to do this and do that and run a project or build an initiative, and to do that in a way that multiple teams can take that general process, those those guardrails, as it were. And for some of those teams, it's a 6-lane highway, right?
Right.
The guardrails are so far out, you set your own processes within this, and others, they're a small country road. Just stick to the plan, you're going to be okay.
Right, yeah.
And to build those processes that are scalable and modifiable by the customer.
I think a lot of people too, like, but what is a PMO? Like, what do you guys do?
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like a cool one-liner and something that I have no idea what it means. I remember working with the Air Force and I heard all these acronyms, and if you ever work with the Air Force, you have books and books of acronyms, and I think it's important for, I still don't know them all, but we talk like it, we know exactly what that means, but I think it's important for folks to understand what we do, right?
Right.
It's, we do processes, we do efficiency rates. Like, for example, we'll look at projects and we'll identify quickly with data what is inefficient, where are bottlenecks, and why they are, and how much is costing our organization with time, money, resources, assets, you name it, and how do we remove that? How do we ensure that we don't make the same mistakes twice? What processes are we going to put in place? How are we doing A/B testing?
Yeah, so let's talk about that real fast. So for the average viewer who isn't really familiar with project management, I mean, this works in all kinds of aspects, from supply chain to software to anything else, product creation, things like that. So for you guys, in the name of software project management, what is basically like a normal flow for your week or 2 weeks?
So I'll start with the traditional project management, like you said, supply chain or even construction or healthcare, right? In traditional, you would build what you call like a work breakdown structure where I know all the tasks. It's very repeatable. It's something we do over and over and over again. I need to order materials for a construction project. I know it's 6 months out. I need 3 months of lead time. So you plan what we call a Gantt chart, right, of motions that have to happen in transactional order in order for that to happen. So it's repeatable for the most part. There's some adjustments and some things that are nuances, but for the most part, that's very traditional. Mm-hmm. For us here on a week-to-week basis, we follow a software development lifecycle where there is a lot of initiation and planning and validation that we're building the right thing, and then it comes into what we call the engine, right, of execution, and that's what we do the best at, is executing, where we get these ideas that are already fully flushed. I know that customers want this. I have validation that customers want this. I have data to prove it. My mom will use it. My grandma will use it, right? Whoever. We know for a fact that this is something that is our customers want to go to market. And project, PMO, when can I get it now? Right? And we've already, well, great. Well, based off of what you're telling me and what our teams have already been able to accomplish, now you're going to plug into our engine of execution, get on the boat or the engine, the choo-choo train, whatever you want to call it, and then we will be able to tell you with almost 80% certainty of when we're going to deliver that at what cost.
Right.
And that, to me, us, is the most important thing. Is, working in the Air Force, working here, is how long is it going to take me and how much is it going to cost, right, to get this said thing. And within the Agile and Web3 space, Sarge is working on an initiative right now that's really going to propel us into that space of understanding our cost a whole lot more, but using in a decentralized way, right? And what does that mean? And but our stakeholders are people who are paying for these things. They want to know when things are going to be delivered. Everyone wants to know, when is it going to be done?
Right.
Just tell me it's going to be done. And we don't like to give dates. Like, Friday at 4 p.m., we give launch windows because there's uncertainty in any project, and we have to plan for risks. We have to plan for new regulations with, I don't know, we're in crypto. Everybody heard of the SEC? Everybody know who Gary Gensler is?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Our viewers do.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So,
We've been talking about it for a bit.
So Gary, so we have to, we're taking our project management and applying risk to the SEC, applying risk to blockchain projects, and how these are not repeatable things. We have never done this before. Right. And that's why this is a trailblazing effort within Web3, blockchain, PMOs, traditional, Agile. They're all going to come together and have a baby, right?
Yeah. So you guys traditionally, or at least in this role, there are kind of prescriptive software that a lot of people use. Your Jiras, your Asana, however you want to do it. Do you see a shift in that type of software in this role as far as Web3 goes? Like, is there a decentralized version of Jira, for instance?
I like to think that Jira is actually quite decentralized.
Jira is fairly democratic, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you
it
can
really is.
the open source part of it, where you can bring in other people's apps and affect your workflow. definitely lends itself to that, right?
Jira is, so yeah, we use Jira. I love Jira. I love Atlassian products. It can get you in trouble real fast if you don't know what you're doing.
Sure.
Yeah,
But at least in
something
our
out.
realm, Jira for us, even in Web3 and Agile and decentralization, like it's been the best tool for us to be decentralized with all the different plugins. We've built our own plugins to do what our PMO is trying to do because it doesn't exist in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But in terms of like what it look like in 5 years, how do PMOs operate in transition? It's gonna be a very interesting like landscape in my opinion. Like we could be using a combination of a lot of new tech on the blockchain to manage projects even, right? And to manage scope on the blockchain. What does it look like? How does that work? I don't know yet, right? But those are things that 100% we're thinking about.
Are any of the custom things that you guys have built for Jira something that you're considering releasing and selling on the Jira marketplace for other?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's dope. All right, I have a fun question. What do you guys think of the phrase centralized to decentralized?
Centralized. Oh, we're doing it.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
it's exactly
what we're doing.
that's the
So
point.
as we mentioned this a minute ago, like we have to. What does project management look like in the Web3 space and decentralized? Because PMOs are very centralized. They have processes, they have tools that you have to follow, and templates, very centralized. But you have to do that in order to have projects that can be decentralized. If not, you can't start the other way around.
Right.
You can't decentralize. That won't work. That's just mass
right.
chaos.
Right.
We believe in organization, right? At my house, my wife doesn't like this, but I got a Kanban board in my house. And even when I moved, I put she loved this actually. I had a Kanban board. So PMO and project management is a way of life in our view. Whoever doesn't think that way is wrong.
So you had a moving Kanban
Yeah,
board?
I've moved locations to where I live now, and I had a nice little Kanban board with epics and initiatives. For each epic was a room.
Yeah.
And I
no,
assigned my
this
wife
is-
certain areas
I'm gonna
of
do this.
my house
This is really
and
good.
to do and in progress, and I would make her accountable for things that weren't packed in time because moving was coming a certain day. We had to be out, and
You're
I
seeing
said, "Look,
inside the machine now, folks.
yeah." So I said, "Honey, if you don't deliver on your commitments of packaging these boxes up in said playroom, we are not going to meet my deadline of moving out of the house by this date."
That's a great way to hold her accountable.
And you
for
know.
Very
Not gonna
happy
s-
lady his wife.
I held her accountable for about 38 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I had to pretty much take over and do it for her. But
Yeah. I assume you still followed the plan though.
oh,
Completed your epics.
100%. We were ahead of schedule, on time. We were ahead of schedule, under budget,
Right.
actually. So
That's the beauty. You know, you can shift with priority changes.
Yeah.
Right?
That's-
yeah, shift with
Mama
priority
says
changes.
no, and
The
you just-
agile household.
I gave my son one too. He was 4 at the time, and he didn't do a good job. And I don't know how to make him accountable,
Yeah.
But no, there's a lot of things that we do in our lives that are, it's interesting. It's organized. Like you talk to any project manager, one of the things they're really good at is organization. I'm really weird, but I go and when I drive by neighborhoods, I look at people's garages because I want to see
I
their
do too, actually, for the same reason.
I want to see how they've organized
Yeah.
and how efficient they are
Yeah.
with their space. And I have a man cave in my garage. It's epoxy floor. It's organized to the T. Every tool in the right spot, right? I go to my neighbors' garages. I walk in there and I just sit silent for about 30 to 40 seconds, and they know what I'm doing. And they say, like, "You're judging me, aren't you?" And I said, "I'm having anxiety right now of what is
The
going on
judgments
in
in
here.
the past. I'm now dealing
Exactly,
with.
yeah.
Like this needs to go here. That needs to go. I need to leave."
Yeah.
But I'll slow down and watch. It's just interesting, like. It's what we do, and we bring that to the work, and that's why we're so passionate about what we do. Like, it's not just we don't come to work and then go home and forget about it. Like the way we organize our lives. I'm not saying go out and Kanban your spouse or something other into like moving, or don't do that. But
Unless you do.
unless you
then
do,
compare notes
if you
with
do,
your
I got
work,
some
see
stuff
how
for
it
you.
goes.
Please leave some comments.
Please leave me some
if
comments.
You have been doing this.
I have a template for you that
Yeah,
works.
That sounds great.
But it's a way of life.
Yeah. So your PNP.
Yes.
Did you do that after school or in school?
When did I do that? I did that. I tacked on the end of my MBA.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
1936.
Yeah, I typed my final thesis on a.
Okay, that's that. So for people that are like interested in this, you know, in the project management space, what's the best pathway? I've seen a lot of different pathways, just with the people I work with.
For Agile specifically, there's a Agile Certified Practitioner certification, and LinkedIn Learning has a fantastic course
Oh, really?
For that, yeah.
Okay.
It's 22-hour-long videos or something like that, and it satisfies all your requirements. Not that I'm plugging them specifically,
Right,
but
but
so when I received my ACP, my Agile Certified Practitioner, that's the way I went, and it was pretty efficient.
that's awesome.
PMPs typically I don't see too much online, but they're more classroom.
Yeah, PMP, like, I don't want to get roasted on this one, but hey, here we are. I actually never got my PMP, just to be fully transparent.
Yeah.
PMP is interesting. The PMBOK guide is actually, half of it is now Agile based.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think PMP is great, and there's a very traditional way of doing project management again, but again, there's a new disruptive way of doing project management that I don't think there's a certification that now that exists. Maybe we're working on something like that. Maybe we're not.
Maybe.
I'm not going to spill the beans.
Maybe.
But, you know, there's the Agile Certified Practitioner is a great one. Obviously, there's a ton of the Agile courses out there. The Global PMO Alliance has certifications around this. But certifications are great, but getting into the actual work and actually understanding what tools you have in your back pocket with those certs, or the education is important. Always important. I'm huge in education. Sarge and I both have done this for a long time and got our education in it. As we get into it, let's take that thing that we learned in this book on that page and apply it with that book over here,
exactly.
and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so I have, my software team has been chugging along for 2 weeks with the absence of our project manager.
Oh, how's that
And
going?
It has been very painful. I've just kind of filled it in for now. We ended a sprint today, and we completed all of that, and I was just like, hey, let's do the retro when he's back. Let's just go through the rest of the ceremonies.
I think what you bring up an important topic, right? I think people don't realize PMOs are actually undervalued in the industry, and
I'd agree.
And they don't know it, and that's really the fault of like Sarge and not myself. Like then that's why we wanted to chat and I'd talk. What are these things? Or what do they do? They're undervalued, and the value that they have is really huge.
Yeah.
And you don't really realize what they do until you don't have a project manager or a PMO or processes. You have. It can be done, but it's very, very hard to organize.
We limped through
standard.
it because we had process. You know, we've been doing our ceremonies. We've been checking in with each other, making sure we've made it through this time. But just having someone move the team through with you, you know, because a lot of the time my focus is elsewhere. You know, I'm trying to do that other part where I have these ideas on what people are going to use,
Yeah.
and so like let's get that down the pipe, and then also, how are you guys doing building all of this?
It's like the analogy. You ever tried to herd cats in a
Yes.
field? So what we do is herding cats, and then we try to maybe sometimes baptize them. You ever tried to baptize a cat? Doesn't work. I actually never tried that, by the way, or herding cats. But we herd. It's chaos. There's a lot of times it's chaos, new technology, changing priorities. It's always on the fly, and we have to organize the chaos and stay calm in the storm.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you don't have that organization or someone who can help, like you said, drive the needle, you can get shifted to the left or the right, and it's like, come back, please. And so that's the value that you don't realize you don't have until it's not there.
Yeah. You have project managers. You have agile project managers. What's Scrum?
What's Scrum? Yeah, and the Agilists will turn over in their grave. I've said this multiple times. I don't believe in.
And really, what's the difference?
Maybe that's better to put.
What's the difference?
Scrum Masters, right? What is Scrum? Scrum is a methodology in Agile. It's how you do work. It's the most common, popular software development Agile method out there to date. But it's a way. We have Scrum Masters of Scrum that handle the work that comes in increment sprints, right? 2-week sprints. Scrum Master is involved in charge of ensuring that sprints are there. Their daily stand-ups, their sprint plannings about what we're going to do in the next 2 weeks, right? In conjunction with the product owner and the development team. So development team, Scrum Master, and product owner are involved, and there's certain roles that they all play, and they do Scrum. They 2-week increments. What worked, what didn't, what do we do better every 2 weeks, so you continuously adapt and innovate. And then there's project management, which is, again, when is it going to be done? I want to know what's going to be done. What are my risks? What are my resources? Who do I have? What's my capacity? And we are marrying those two, right? Our project managers are agile project managers.
Right.
Sarge is not just a Scrum Master, or our project manager, they don't just do Scrum. They're required to, but you need to put on your project management hat too, because you've got to figure out what risks you have. When are you going to deliver? What's it going to cost?
Yeah.
If you don't do this, what does that mean? What are your scenarios, right? And so you can't just do Scrum, in my opinion, and be successful in launching projects.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You agree with that?
I do. I absolutely do. Scrum's all about breaking. Project management is, here's this thing, here's the problem we're trying to solve, and here's the solution we're working towards. That's project management, right? And all the 1,000 different steps along the way, right? Scrum is about the same exact thing. What problem are we trying to solve? Okay, there's our solution to it, but can we deliver that in little pieces? Mm-hmm. And you break the delivery of those little pieces up into small increments, sprints, crumbs, right? Shards out in the universe, right? Or whatever.
We're gonna bury these
of your analogy.
treasures.
But yeah, so that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Project's about the thing. Scrum's about the putting the little pieces of value out along the way.
That makes sense. It sounds like we're going to be competing for sound here pretty soon with whatever's going on in the event behind us. In closing, is there any last messages you guys want to get out?
The last message is we're putting together some really cool things in this quarter and Q4 into what the PMO is going to be doing and how we're going to be leveraging the disruptive PMO outside of NERD and other ecosystems and certifications, and what does that mean, and partnering up with other entities around the community here and globally with how we're really going about and attacking it. So, we'd love to chat with anybody about, hey, I've got an issue. How would you solve this? Or we'd love to talk to you about, we're going to be doing things here in our office with PMOs long term, and we'd love to chat with folks about it. And you can reach us LinkedIn here on the stream, or anywhere else. But PMOs are here to stay.
We'll make sure that we have your LinkedIn links in the content.
Sure. Yeah.
How about you?
I would just leave you with one thing. If you're interested in project management, go make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah, no, he's right. This is a good analogy.
And pay attention to what you're doing. It's all about what problem am I trying to solve. I'm hungry, someone else is hungry. I have a goal that I'm working towards, and I break it down into little steps, and then there's a process to it. I can do it different the next time. So go make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
That's peanut butter and jelly. And the last thing I'll say, based off what this just jotted in my memory here, but when you do project management, it's not just a job, it's your daily life. Just coming to work, anything that you do, you have to think about your next steps. And, I'm dependent on my driver's license to actually go anywhere. That is a dependency.
Right.
I'm dependent on gasoline to make my car run.
Air and tires.
Everything that you do is, because you guys, you're all project managers at heart.
Here's my question. So my wife and I have had this conversation a few times, but I'm curious about your answer because you are in project management, and so you have a plan. How far into the future do you see in your life normally? Like 3 months, 6 months?
That's one of my wife's biggest complaints about me.
Yeah.
It's like, will you stop and just smell the roses? I said, no, I need to. I'm personally, with work or personal life, I'm 10 to 15 years out right now. I have things in motion right now to get there. And for projects, that's a little different, right? And in a work setting, because every project is very unique and different. And again, we try to not plan for more than a couple of sprints, because we don't. Priorities change, technology changes, regulations change.
The farther out the plan, the less likely it is to go that way.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yep. 100%.
That makes sense. So, how about you? How far you see?
As far as I understand, I thought I could see the end of the day today until somebody said, "Are you busy at 11?"
Right.
Right. I myself, I try not to plan too far out.
Yeah.
Because there's so many factors you have to take into account. Like, am I going to go home? My kid's going to be sick.
Right.
Or it's raining today. Is there going to be mud all over the floor in the house? Right. I have no idea if I'm going to go see a movie tonight because I don't know what I'm going to run into.
Yeah.
But one thing I do find myself thinking about because I am a project manager, I see all the risks and all the little side
Right.
Issues that could come up. Okay, well, I'm going to go see a movie tonight. Great. What are the things that could happen to prevent me from doing that?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty good at 2 days.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But other than after that, there's just too many variables for me.
One of my daughters, actually, you've met my daughter.
Yeah.
She's learning to drive right now. She's 15 years old.
Perfect.
And we've had a few talks where she's like, because these days I'll drive on the highway and I'll just like call things out, safety things,
yeah,
all of that,
absolutely.
And she's gotten to the point where she's like, Dad, I think I'm a good driver. And I'm like, the thing is, you need to worry about other drivers. Like your skill, your risk only goes so far. And so the risk mitigation is a thing that I'm trying to get in her head, because it's a constant thing, right? You always need to be able to entertain Cissna showing up and asking you to sit down for a podcast.
Right, exactly.
First.
Always
I
be
didn't plan that
prepared.
very well. Sorry.
Always be prepared. Always have a
So-
jar of peanut butter with you.
Well,
That'd
when
be
you
great.
guys have something to come tell us at the end of Q4, let's do this again.
Oh, it could be a
that'll
lot
work.
sooner than
That'd
that.
be
Yeah, but
Excellent. Even better.
Yeah.
Even better. Let's get that out, and then if we have any other forms of communication you guys want to start working on,
Absolutely.
for people, come and find these guys online. David Hall, Jordan Cissna, and start asking questions. You'll probably help develop this even faster. So
you'll get non-traditional responses from the both of us.
that's
Oh yeah,
perfect.
absolutely, for
That's
sure.
what we're here for. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Viewers, thank
thanks,
you so
Tom.
much for hanging out, and we'll catch you next time.